Good afternoon. I really wanted to start my intervention with some figures, but the last intervention left us with many figures. That's why I will just shed light on some figures that might be shocking and complement the previous interventions. Around 70% of the victims, the injured, are among women and children. Around 200,000 tons of explosives were thrown onto Gaza. The cost of reconstruction is around 70 billion USD, which is almost equivalent to the cost of aggression. So you can imagine, think of this similarity between the cost of aggression and the cost of reconstruction. Around, as described as a form of genocide to houses or domicide, around 350,000 housing units were democided, leaving around 61 million tons of debris. Just imagine this, 61 million tons of debris is around 6,000 Eiffel Towers. This intervention addresses the structural and deep structural and political transformations in Gaza through three approaches that shed light on the space and geography of control and the international transformation international narratives. The first one analyzes the spatial control structure in Gaza as a universal model for spatial control. The second one is the gradual change in the international political and media narrative as related to the crimes in Gaza. So it sheds light on the third one on reconstruction as a central playground for conflict. Because beside the new liberal international initiatives, there are local and academic grassroots visions that seek to connect reconstruction with national liberation. Whereas today there are Western visions that contribute to marginalizing the Palestinians and return them to the logic of detention. My paper today, Gaza between genocide and reimagination, transformation of space and reconstruction discourse. Gaza has never been just a small plot of land near the sea, but rather it has always been a strategic security and political complex in the Zionist awareness. Ishaq Rabin expressed this view when he expressed his wish that Gaza would be drawn into the sea. And the unilateral disengagement by Sharon in 2005, Israel dealt with Gaza as a separate, secluded entity, applying its security theories and besieging it. But seclusion was not the objective by itself, but rather to turn Gaza into a test lab to test new policies for subjugation and control, including also testing weapons and monitoring tools. Through siege and recurrent aggression and attempts to dismantle economic and social structures, Israel has been since many decades seeking to make Gaza as a repellent place for its residents and to push residents to think of leaving it, be it under the pressure of hunger or through temptations for economic projects. The Zionist doctrine since its establishment is based on the idea of land without people for people without land, which summarizes the colonial project, either to annihilate them or turn them into an excessive creatures. There are also explicit calls by the Israeli government members calling to deport the Palestinians from the Gaza Strip and from the West Bank, reminding us of the early Israeli projects. And some of these also projects or initiatives are wrapped up in fake humanitarian cover to convince the Palestinians to leave their place. Before 2 years, my colleagues and I had an opportunity to visit Gaza. Our entry to Gaza, when we got the permit for that, was not as problematic as leaving it. We arrived there after many hours of crossing a complex Israeli checkpoints. On the way, there are farms for Sharon and for Mordechai and a balloon that is monitoring the movements of Gazans. After Ashkelon, few minutes in Midway, you are surprised with a major building, well equipped like international airports, saying, "Welcome to Erez Crossing" in English, Hebrew, and Arabic, and giving an international nature, like a crossing, in an attempt to negate the identity of the checkpoint that fragments the Palestinian territory. The checkpoints are among the many ways that the occupation system tries to employ as ways of controlling the Palestinian space and imposing monitoring and digital means to monitor the Palestinians' movements and to fragment their maps and to limit the development of IT and to continue controlling the Palestinian frequencies that is limited to the second generation in Gaza, and to impede integrating technology in the daily lives of the Palestinians and undermine the cornerstones for establishing a full-fledged Palestinian state. And at the time when the Israeli military checkpoints are organized in a way that seeks to reorganize the Palestinian system, it is clear that how the IT has played an important role in entrenching inequality and the relations and the unbalanced power relations, because the digital occupational practices has touched all the living aspects for the Palestinians, and Israel used technology to entrench and consolidate its control of the Palestinian land and to consolidate its control and impose it as a reality. At the checkpoint, Israel employs all possible technology to manage and control the passage of Palestinians, and the decision of the Palestinians is given to the electronic system along with the biometric cards and permits. And in spite of all the promotion for the checkpoints, promoting it as a technologically well-developed passages for the Palestinians, to cover up the ugliness of the system. Yet, by looking at the Israeli colonial system and to the dynamics of power that define the nature of the checkpoint, it's clear that how Israel used technology and the buildings in order to monitor the movement of Palestinians and restrict them and to implement its subjugation policy. Eid holiday was close, and my young child was awaiting a toy for me to bring to him whenever I travel. But you are not allowed to bring anything from Gaza. That I hoped that if I could carry all of Gaza with me. In Gaza, you leave some of yourself against your will. Remains of perfume given to you on February 14th, or your shaving razor. You have to leave all of that, and you cannot return without just take with you some memories that the scanning machine tried to strip you of that on your way back to Ramallah, and to distance you from that, just like as in the case of all moments of happiness that you live in that place. The second one discusses the transformations in the international narrative since the start of the attack against Gaza. Many international humanitarian organizations and reports by the international UN fact-finding missions documented systematic trends of the indiscriminate destruction to the Palestinians' life, which is a form of genocide. In spite of the experiences by the media and Western government, they continued repeating the Israeli narrative using terminology such as self-defense and combating terrorism, while they marginalized the Palestinian narrative or put it within a security framework, stripping the Palestinians in Gaza from their humanity. Then later on, indications appeared for transformations in this narrative, such as South Africa deciding to hold Israel accountable before the ICJ in a first employment to the concept of accountability, a matter that pushed the legal narrative and diplomatic positions into unprecedented levels. Since late 2024, there were cracks in the prevailing narrative, coupled with models for change and transformations in the media, where some Western media started moving from describing the aggression as a conflict into as a systematic structural violence that could be crimes against humanity. Also, the entry of independent journalists from Gaza through the social media led to transforming the narrative and contributed to documenting the Israeli violations and provided daily coverage and humanitarian narratives that led to rebuilding the awareness and showed destruction that contradicts with the Israeli official narrative. Many other organizations started using terms such as indiscriminate bombing and civilian bombing more repeatedly. At the level of the political discourse, in spite of the American policy that supports Israel, yet we started witnessing some transformations in this area. In addition to the behavior of some European and Universal South, where some positions that appear to be more cautious or critical by European parliaments and legal movements such as in Belgium, Ireland, and Chile for the trial of those responsible for the atrocities committed in Gaza, and there were official statements against these genocide crimes. In spite of these changes and transformations, although they are gradual, initial, and are not structural change, yet they are accelerating and indicating into a possible turning point and constitute an opportunity to redefine the Palestinian narrative internationally and for the positioning of the Palestinian cause within a greater framework within the movements that combat colonialism. In addition to supporting the efforts of the ICC and expanding popular and academic pressure. There is no doubt that change in the world discourse and using the term genocide has pushed many countries to reconsider their relations with Israel. The Brazilian president said there was no fighting in Gaza, but an Israeli army killing women and children. On the other hand, Britain and other 4 Western countries imposed sanctions on 2 Israeli ministers for incitement to violence against the Palestinians. Also, the BDS got added momentum in Western and American communities, where the Colombian president decided to sever relations with Israel and called for forming an international army to liberate Palestine, describing Gaza as the resisting capital in the world. In spite of the immense humanitarian cost, Gaza has brought back the Palestinian cause to the international focus, where the recent 2 years witnessed massive and widespread recognition for the state of Palestine, such as from the UK and France, and the New York Declaration in 2025 that called for taking tangible steps to stop the conflict and stopping the attack on Gaza Strip and to consolidate international recognition of the state of Palestine as a state under occupation. The third paradigm, the permanent temporality of the occupation since 2008, and with the repetition of Israeli aggressions and right up to the genocide, the Gaza Strip turned into a testing point for the international conscience. And in the recent 2 years, many plans and visions were put forward to end the vision for the reconstruction of Gaza. Many of them had security, and political and economic objectives. These visions range between solutions focusing on the Palestinian full sovereignty and ending the occupation to others that impose international custodianship and other proposals also for complete Israeli hegemony that always realize an attempt to re-engineer the Gaza Strip in a way that serves the balances of powers, Western powers, more than being a solution for humanitarian or other solutions. So reading these policies is not just an academic exercise, but rather it's a basic entry point to understand the political issue and its position, the Palestinian issue internationally. This can be felt by having three approaches. First, the Palestinian-Egyptian plan that enjoyed Arab, Islamic, and European support, yet was rejected by America and Israel, and the New York Declaration led with the leadership of France and Saudi Arabia, and the Trump plan that targets imposing a new de facto and evading the Palestinian legitimacy based on which the aggression was stopped against Gaza. And this led to having differences between different international alliances. The Arab one that's based on the Palestinian legitimacy and the international framework for political solution, and the economic and political hegemony, the American one. And these can be analyzed through three paradigms. First, the nature of administration, security, and the political dimension. As the Egyptian plan approves a full Palestinian leadership after a small interim period, and the New York Declaration calls for a Palestinian return, the Trump provides temporary international leadership, distancing the Palestinian leadership without any clear track for solution. From a security perspective, the Egyptian and New York Declaration plan for deploying international forces, whereas the Trump plan keeps the surrounding Israeli security control. And politically, the Egyptian plan and New York Declaration connects between the two-state solution and reconstruction, whereas the Trump plan that enjoyed support of the recent UN resolution connects it with economic development and political reform as a precondition for the self-determination. We can say that the last model and the comprehensive plan for ending conflict in Gaza that was announced by Donald Trump in September 2025 provides a clear framework for what can be described as a permanent temporality. Because this plan, although it is presented as an interim stage, yet its arrangements indicate that it's going to be permanent thing and the real and actual political system, because the plan states on forming a technocratic Palestinian committee under the oversight of something they named as the Peace Council, headed by Trump himself, to manage Gaza until the Palestinian Authority achieves a massive reform program without setting any timeline or clear criteria. And along with that, a temporary international stability force will be deployed and is mentioned as the internal long-term solution. As mentioned in the document, the absence of a clear timeline for the Israeli withdrawal from Gaza and connecting that with open-ended political and security conditions entrenches this long-term nature of the should-be temporary one, a matter that consolidates this open nature of the solution and turn it into a long-term one. Thus, this institutional design creates a temporary system without any clear ending and freezes the basic political issues and redefines the temporary as being the final itself. This is similar to the forms of ruling in Kosovo and Herzegovina, where they were the temporary ones were turned into permanent ones. Also recently, there was an American vision to divide Gaza Strip into two, a green one, controlled by the Israeli forces, and the International Stability Force, where they will start construction and building, and the other one, red, which is controlled by Hamas. Outside the so-called yellow line, it will remain destroyed without any plans for reconstruction. So Gaza might become actually controlled through international security and development, permanent leadership with international custodianship without any political final solution. Thank you.